Hi, good morning, everyone. I know it was a bit of short notice today. For those in the room, I know you know, most of you do, at least you should. Earlier this morning, we released video footage of the June 22nd Beatties Ford Road shooting incident. That incident claimed 4 young lives in our community. You've seen the video. I think we all agree that the video is just flat out jarring, incomprehensible. You know, you hear it, you see that level of violence, and it really does, just takes your breath away. There is some encouragement, not the least of which involves the tremendous amount of work that's been advanced over the last several months from people in this building, out on patrol, even working with our community. A lot of work's been done, and that's where I want to bring in the police chief, Chief Jennings. He's going to go over some of that work, and there are some developments that we do want to discuss this morning. Chief Jennings.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate everyone being here, and as you heard already, there's been a great deal of work and time and effort that's been put into this investigation. It's been a good work of collaboration with different agencies, different entities within CMPD as well, and we're proud of the work that's been done. And obviously, there's still more work to be done as well. So, if you look, the Beatties Ford Road corridor is a priority for the city and the county, and we are looking at ways to ensure that there are opportunities that are provided in that corridor. So this is one of those cases that we want to make sure that we put all the effort that we can to bring some closure to it. The video that you saw, I'll tell you, and you heard Rob mention it earlier, it's a miracle that we came out with what we did, and it wasn't more traumatic than what's occurred, that more people weren't tragically killed in this incident, when you see the total disregard and recklessness of human life out there for what we saw. So our detectives, they poured their hearts out into this case. I wish I could show you all the ins and outs of their investigation, but I can tell you there's been thousands of hours that have been put into this. A lot of things, not just the collection of the evidence and the canvassing, but also the analysis of the evidence that we have out there, the technology that's been used to ensure that we're putting every effort into this case to help resolve it. You know, it's a fact that, we've been pursuing leads with the videos that we do have, the things that we've been able to collect from the community, some of the third-hand information that we've been able to get, that we've used video and other evidence to try and corroborate that. But, a lot of that, even with that effort, we've fallen short. And that's why we're here today, because we're calling on the help of the community. We're at a point in this investigation where we need assistance, and time and time again, the historically within our community, we've seen our community step up in these cases, and we've seen how great and what an impact our community can have when it comes to these investigations and how they help us solve those incidents. So the information and the plea to the community, if you have information that can help identify those individuals that you saw in that video who were shooting, please, we need to know about it. And we need to know so that we can continue on with this investigation. I can assure you that we're going to move heaven and earth to get this case resolved. We're going to continue to work on it until people are held accountable for the actions that took place on that night. So with that, I'm going to have Lieutenant Brian Crum come up and walk you through some of the additional developments of this case. And again, if community has any information they can provide to us, particularly in relation to the video that we just put out, we need to hear that. So thank you, and Lieutenant Crum.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to pick up where the Chief left off. We need to speak to these individuals that you guys see in that video. There's no pending charges against them at this point. We don't even know if their gunfire struck anyone. What we do know is that they have information that's relevant to this investigation, and we need to talk to them. As we've said, we put a tremendous amount of time and resources into this case. trying to identify everyone, including the individuals in this video. Unfortunately, when we're working cases, sometimes we hit dead ends. We have to follow up on that next thread of evidence, that next lead, to try to get us the answers we want, in this case identifying these men. Unfortunately, we have gotten to a point where we need to ask the community for help. Our leads have run out in this case, and in the past, they've always come through for us. The community has stepped up and done the right thing and helped us to identify people so that we can progress the investigation. The chief also talked about some of the resources that we put into this case. From early on in this investigation, we've been able to leverage our partnership with the ATF. And this is a long-standing relationship we've had with them, where we work together, agents and detectives side by side, in order to progress investigations. And together, we're able to leverage our collective resources in order to make arrests in cases. It's not just manpower. We're leveraging technology that's been critical in this case, or our use of technology has been critical. One of those technologies is NIBIN, which is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. That is a database that's able to compare fired evidence from one crime scene to another. I think the easiest way to understand the way that NIBIN works is anytime somebody fires a gun, that gun leaves distinguishing characteristics on both the casings and the projectile, basically like a fingerprint. We're able to take that fingerprint, put that into a database, and compare that across various cases to link cases we may not have been aware of were linked. Here at CMPD, we're able to do that in-house. So when a crime scene technician or a police officer on a scene collects fired evidence, they bring it back here to headquarters, and then our lab is able to actually input that information to the system. And if those fingerprints come back matching, they're able to provide those leads to detectives very quickly. So that allows us to follow up on cases and additional leads from those other cases. It's important to know this links firearms, not people. So to say that a gun was fired at one scene and another, it doesn't mean the same person's responsible. It just means the same firearm was present or used at that scene. At this point, NIBIN has been able to link several of the 180 shell casings, or more than 180 shell casings that were recovered on Beatties Ford Road. This has also directly led to the recovery of firearms that we know, or guns that we know were fired on Beatties Ford that night. So detectives and agents have been able to use those leads to actually recover these weapons. At this point, we know there were at least 10 guns that we can link, or that were fired out there, and we've been able to link some of those casings to other crimes, that's other potentially violent crimes or violent crimes. In addition to this technology, NIBIN is run by the ATF. So in addition to their technology with NIBIN, they've also contributed to date $10,000 towards the reward in this case. Again, we need the community's help, and so if we need them to call. A lot of times people are hesitant to come forward with information. We've gotten some information, but if there's people out there that still have it, we need them to come forward. They can call Crime Stoppers at 704-334-1600, or the tip line at 704-432-TIPS. Again, we don't need your name, we just need your information. I'm gonna let Agent Spotswood share a little bit more information about ATF's efforts in this case.
Thank you, Lieutenant Crum. Here at ATF, we pride ourselves on the relationship that we have with our state and local counterparts. That partnership with Chief Jennings and CMPD is the reason we have that pride. I have the honor of being one of the leaders of a violent crime task force here in the city. On that task force, we have CMPD detectives, North Carolina probation officers, and ATF agents working side by side every day on cases just like this one. It's a way that we can utilize the resources of CMPD and the resources of ATF, including the crime gun intelligence like NIBIN, and combine those resources to identify and target those violent offenders who are wreaking havoc in our community. We know that day started out as a peaceful celebration, and unfortunately, a small number of violent offenders turned that celebration into a tragedy. It was because of that that a few months ago, ATF offered a reward of $10,000 for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of those shooters. Today, we're raising that offer from $10,000 to $15,000 for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of those shooters, which brings the total amount up to $22,000, but we need your help. We know that it started out as a peaceful celebration. However, those 400 people that were out there celebrating are 400 potential witnesses, 400 chances that we get at getting that one or two pieces of information that will prove crucial in breaking this case wide open. So please offer your assistance. Give us a chance to bring closure and justice to the family members who lost loved ones that day. So if you know anything, no matter how small, give us a call. Thank you.
Appreciate you, sir. You know, we're going to go ahead and we're going to open it up to questions in just a couple of moments, do our level best with all these respective agencies here in the room to get those questions answered. I think we would be remiss, though, if we didn't recognize somebody who's in the room. Kenneth Stevenson, he's over here to my right, to your left. He's over here in the corner, and originally we thought he'd have a couple of words that he'd want to say here at the lectern concerning his son. His son, Darion, was one of the victims, one of the 4 victims, young guy, 31 years old, his son, his only child, by the way, 31-year-old guy, certified chef, father of 3, just a good kid out there doing nothing more than celebrating back on June 22nd. So if we can't pull on the purse strings of the community with that $22,000 award, maybe we could pull on the heartstrings and we could start thinking about people like Kenneth Stevenson and what he and his family are going through. You know, they've been through hell and back. So anyone within the sound of our voice, 704-334-1600, 704-334-1600, up to a $22,000 reward like was just referenced. Don't need to know who you are, where you are, don't have to testify in court, merely providing the information for our detectives and our partners to follow up on. 704-334-1600. We'll go ahead and we will open it up to questions.
Lieutenant Crown, you mentioned that you've been able to find guns that were used at the crime scene, link them back to it. I guess with that, explain how y'all have run into dead ends or how that didn't lead to an arrest for the viewers who might be confused by that.
Okay, yeah, so just to clarify, so we followed up on a lot of leads, both from the community, those are tips coming in from, callers, tipsters, interviews that we've done, that we believe are gonna lead to identifying the people in the video. NIBIN then provides us with other leads that we've been able to leverage in this investigation to link potential cases, identify other persons of interest that we need to talk to, and then ultimately we have recovered firearms. I think I said before, just because we can say that a firearm was at both scenes, that doesn't necessarily mean that was the same person that was pulling the trigger. So those are very, very good leads, but we have to continue working those. I want to be clear, when we say we've reached a dead end in identifying the people in this video, that's where we're at with the video. When it comes to the investigation as a whole, we still have a tremendous number of leads that are being worked every day.
Sorry, Robin. If you could, Lieutenant, or whomever it is that's taking the questions, if you could just repeat the question back in your response. I know that a lot of us are streaming it on social media, and it'll give the folks at home an opportunity to hear what the question was.
Sure.
So the 10 guns, how many have you recovered all 10 of those?
We have not. So those are linked. Sorry, the question was, have we recovered all 10 guns? We have not recovered all 10 linked firearms. We have identified those firearms. We have recovered some of those firearms.
Do you all have any clarity as to what sparked the gunfire?
The question is, do we have any clarity as to what sparked the gunfire? I think the short answer is no. There's a lot of, Beatties Ford's quite a stretch of street. And so there was a lot of different situations, I think, that led to everything that happened, that whatever that first event was that led to the next and led to the next. So there's a multitude of reasons that that shooting broke out. As far as getting to the details of what we have specifically, we really can't share that at this point because that's part of the ongoing investigation.
And does that include gang involvement?
Does that
Include gang involvement?
Are you asking, does this Beatties Ford shooting include gang involvement?
What you can't share?
No, I wouldn't say gang involvement at all. No, we don't have any strong gang involvement at this point.
In the video, you kind of, out of the screen, you hear burst bullets, and then it seems like these people in the car in the video start responding to that. So at this point, there's no charges for those people. Do you think they were responding? Do you think, you don't think those were the ones who started it per se?
So the question is, the people in the video started, or were they reacting to other gunfire? Yes, there was other gunfire that occurred first elsewhere on Beatties Ford. That video is from up Catherine Simmons, so you can see that it's in response to something, which is why it's important that we talk to them. I don't know what shots, if that was the initial shots, what it was they were responding to, and that's why we'd like to talk to them to ask what's going on. And again, that's why there's no charges at this point. We need to find out what's going on.
And where, oh, go ahead. Where's the surveillance video from? Is it from a nearby business? Is that where you guys got the video?
Yeah, the question is, where does the video come from? It's from a nearby business, yes.
Do you guys have any idea how many shooters we're talking about in this?
The question is, do we know how many shooters? The short answer is no. We know how many weapons were fired on Beatties Ford Road, approximately. Again, we're able to link fired evidence. Not all evidence is perfect for us to be able to compare for a multitude of reasons. We know that there's 10 guns out there. We know there's at least 10 people firing. We don't know what their involvement was directly to this incident, when those shots were fired. Again, those are leads. Physical evidence a lot of times can give us some information, but it's really important that we have people to give us context to that physical evidence. So a casing laying in a roadway doesn't tell us when it was deposited, what the circumstances were, and that's why we've got to talk to people that help put our cases together.
How difficult is this? Because, some people may have been reacting in almost a self-defense kind of mode. So in terms of finding the initial people responsible.
Sure, so the question is how difficult is it to figure out, some people may be reacting to what other people did? That's one of the biggest challenges of this, because geographically, the crime scene that we had is large. There was a tremendous number of people, and each person sees just a small slice of the total picture of what happened. So that's where the detectives and agents come in, is that they're having to go and find each of those little pieces, find out where people were, what their slice is, what they saw, and eventually we get kind of a broader picture so that we truly knew what happened. And again, that's why it's incredibly important that we talk to anybody that is out there so we can get their piece of the puzzle.
Did you say 400 potential witnesses?
I think that's the number that's been thrown out there. So 400 potential witnesses, that's the number that's been thrown out there. I think that's approximately how many people were out there. We don't have like a hard count, though.
How cooperative have any of them helped, or has anyone helped you guys?
Yes, so the question is, has anyone helped us? Yeah, absolutely. People in the community have stepped up. They've given us information. Detectives are following up on that information. Clearly, we don't have that person that puts it all together for us. And again, getting each of those small pieces, no piece is too small. We've got to get every bit of information from everybody so we can see the full picture.
I know you said that some guns have been recovered that were fired that night. Do you know how many of those maybe have been reported stolen?
I don't believe at this point, the question is, have any of those guns been reported stolen? I don't believe we know that any of those guns are reported stolen at this point, but that's not unusual. A lot of times people don't know serial numbers. That goes back to when guns are stolen from legal gun owners. They may not have the information we need to be able to put that into the system to determine it's stolen.
Lieutenant, how hard is it with, Kenneth sitting over here to be able to face him and just not give him the answers that he and the other victims' families really need?
So the question is, how hard is it to face family members, to not be able to give them the answers? It's really tough. What we'd like to be able to do is to be able to give you answers from day one. We can never promise answers, but what we can do is we can promise that we're going to do everything we can to get you the answers that are out there. And that's, again, why we need the community to help us get answers for our victims and for their families.
Is there do you guys have people with interest in this yet, just not enough to make an arrest, or you're still looking to make those identifications? I guess where in that aspect are we?
The question is, have we identified persons of interest? We've identified a lot of people that were out there, is what I'll say. At this point, calling anyone a person of interest, I think would be going too far. We have identified people. We're continuing to identify people as the investigation progresses, and hopefully we'll be able to provide some better context to that later on.
Lieutenant, appreciate you. Appreciate all of you. Just if you would, just keep an eye on your respective inboxes. We'll get that video link out in its native format for you guys to advance a little bit later on. Obviously, if anything develops, you guys will be the first to know. Get it through social media to our respective media affiliates here, and 704-334-1600 up to a $22,000 reward. We encourage you to amplify. Keep pushing that video out that we released just about an hour or so ago, and hopefully this generates some movement, somebody in the community that has some kind of information that'll help these men and women on these teams track this down, resolve these cases, and bring some peace And some solace to people like, to Kenneth over here and families just like his. So 704-334-1600. We appreciate it. Anyone that needs to talk about anything independent of this, we could certainly do so offline. Thanks.